Okay, this is Federalist 22, Part 3. The power of raising armies by the most obvious construction of the Articles of the Confederation is merely a power of making requisitions upon the states for quotas of men. Okay, remember in Part 1 we talked about 5 things that are mentioned as other weaknesses of the Confederacy in America. And we thought that one of those main weaknesses was the government, the national government, the Confederacy, had to make requisitions for troops, for money, and some states would respond to it, some wouldn't. And that's what he's talking about here. I know the map might not be as clear, but these are the southern states. This is Georgia. This is South Carolina. This is North Carolina, which claimed this little area, but this later on became state of Tennessee. And the same thing here, state of Virginia claimed this land, but this area eventually became state of Kentucky. This is Maryland, and the corner is Delaware, right there, that little part. Okay, so I'll continue reading this. This practice in the course of the late war was found replete with obstructions to a vigorous and to an economical system of defense. It says, during the Revolutionary War, we found out what an awful system this is, a system of requisitions. It gave birth to a competition between the states, which created a kind of auction for men. In order to furnish the quotas required of them, they outbid each other till bounties grew to an enormous and insupportable size. Okay, just let me explain this to you. They would ask for soldiers to come from different states. They would make requisitions, and these states in turn would promise their citizens that we will give you so much money if you go serve in the Revolutionary Army. And they were just outbidding each other. And what was happening is that a lot of these people in different states would wait till the state makes a bigger offer to them. That's why he's talking about auction. He says they would not join. They'd say, well, maybe tomorrow, if I wait, tomorrow or next week, they'll offer me more. And they would sometimes forget that their country is in danger. Their future is in danger. So he says, this is not a way to make an army. You can't have soldiers show up 1 or 2 weeks late because they're expecting to maybe make more money. So he says this was a big, huge mistake. The hope of a still further increase afforded an inducement to those who were disposed to serve to procrastinate their enlistment, and disinclined them from engaging for any considerable periods. Hence, slow and scanty levies of men in the most critical emergencies of our affairs, short enlistments at an unparalleled expense, continual fluctuations in the troops, ruinous to their discipline, and subjecting the public safety frequently to the perilous crisis of a disbanded army. So if your army is not there, if your soldiers don't show up on time, you can't discipline them, you can't train them well. So he says, you're having an army, you don't know how many there are going to be, and plus they are not going to be trained well enough. They're not going to be disciplined well enough. Hence also these oppressive expedients for raising men, which were upon several occasions practiced, and which nothing but the enthusiasm of liberty would have induced the people to endure. This method of raising troops is not more unfriendly to economy and vigor than it is to an equal distribution of the burden. The states near the seat of war, influenced by motives of self-preservation, made efforts to furnish their quotas, which even exceeded their abilities, while those at a distance from danger were, for the most part, as remiss as the others were diligent in their exertions. Another thing he brings up is that those states where the battles were closest to would send in more soldiers, or would send the soldiers on time, whereas those who were far away from the scene of battle would not do so. So he says this is another problem. Cannot have an army like that. The immediate pressure of this inequality was not, in this case, as in that of the contributions of money, alleviated by hope of a final liquidation. The states which did not pay their proportions of money might at least be charged with their deficiencies, but no account could be formed of the deficiencies in the supplies of men. We shall not, however, see much reason to regret the want of this hope when we consider how little prospect there is that the most delinquent states will ever be able to make compensation for their pecuniary failures. The system of quotas and requisitions, whether it be applied to men or money, is in every view a system of imbecility in the Union and of inequality and injustice among the members. So when you have to make requisitions, not only it makes the Union imbecile. Remember, every time he uses this word, he uses it in a very negative sense. He says, we just lack energy. We can't do our job right. He says not only the national government can't do its job right, but also there will be inequality and injustice amongst the states. In other words, some states played fair. They'll come up with soldiers and money, you ask them, and some states won't. And here's another important part. I better wait and do this in the next video.